All right, time for some parenting on your Feel Good Breakfast Show this morning. And we're talking about conflict. And conflict in life is inevitable. And it's best to learn how to handle it than to avoid it. Now, this truth not only applies for adults, but for our children as well. And this morning, certified parent coach, she's back with us, Markovitz. She's in studio to give us some advice on how parents can equip their children with good conflict resolution techniques. Very, very important. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Love the dungarees. Very cool.
Thank you.
So we're talking about conflict resolution.
Yeah.
First and foremost, what does good conflict resolution look like, and why is it important for parents to really start engaging with the children on this topic?
So, I mean, obviously conflict's not something we gravitate towards. Most of us really kind of fear it, shy away from it. We don't like
yourself,
it. Exactly. But as you say, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And the good news about conflict is conflict resolution, when it's handled well, is actually a potential for growth, learning. We can actually get somewhere with our relationships, with our friendships, if it's handled well. So you ask sort of what is good conflict resolution then? And I think conflict resolution is where it's respectful, where there's space for each other's feelings to be heard, where there's good problem solving that can happen, and then there's also time for reflection and growth afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's something that is going to be out there. I think it's something that we can't avoid, and it's very much what our kids are seeing us do. You know, they're seeing us, they're seeing how we're resolving things on a daily basis. They're watching us, how we're speaking to people on the phone when we're having frustrating phone calls. So it's not necessarily something that we're sitting down and going, we are going to have the talk about conflict resolution. It's very much what we're role modeling and what we're doing out there.
It's once again by that whole leading by example comes into place, and you don't realize just a simple phone call, if you're going to lose it at some sales agents on the phone that you want to talk about it, your kids see that, and that's the kind of image that they get.
That's how you deal with things then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but that's the further, it couldn't be further from the truth how to go about it. But in their minds, that's the right thing. What good tips can we give to our children?
So, you know, and as I say, it's a continuous thing, but things like teaching our children empathy, being able to understand the perspective of where someone is coming from, helping our kids separate out their feelings from their behavior. So for them to know it's okay for me to feel irritated, angry, disappointed from my friends, whatever feelings I'm feeling, but it's not okay to go and punch them in the face and knock them down necessarily. We've got to think about how I can separate out my feelings from my behavior.
Yeah.
A lovely thing to teach kids from an early age as well is I language, as opposed to, you never do this, you make me feel this way, because as soon as we're doing that in conflict, it's brick wall stuff. I can't hear what you're saying. But if I'm able to use language from an I perspective, which is, I'm feeling really upset about what happened yesterday at school, there's more room to be heard. So really thinking through problem solving, getting them to think through, as opposed to me jumping in, which is always really tempting as parents to give them the answers, but give kids the opportunity to go, sure, that sounds horrible what happened today at school. It sounds awful. What do you think happened? What do you think you could do differently? So for them to actually think through how they can problem solve things.
Absolutely. And of course, this kind of thing, you start by modeling that behavior from, from when you get a kid. And then you start teaching them as they get older, then you can start incorporating this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So from little, I mean, obviously we're sitting with a tiny baby in our arms. They're not being exposed to a whole lot of conflict, hopefully. But as they get older, absolutely, we can be showing them how to be managing themselves better from a very early age.
Exactly, once they start mixing with other kids and things. And funny, I just had a discussion with a friend of mine last night about respect and how kids growing up, and there's conflict, and how you go about resolving that conflict. You still need to do it in a respectful manner to the other person.
You have to be doing it.
It is absolutely vital, and that is what we're also going to be touching on, especially also friends. If you don't think as a parent that one friend might be good for your kid, how do you go about sorting that one out? Laura's going to be back in just a little bit.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Welcome back. You're tuned into your Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso, right here on SABC3. So good to be hanging out with you. Thank you for tuning in. It is your Wednesday morning, the 13th of February. Hey, the love day is just around the corner. Anyways, right now, though, not talking about that.
No.
Now, earlier on, we spoke about exactly the importance of learning good conflict resolution techniques from a very early age. We're continuing that conversation right now with our certified parent coach, Laura Markovitz. Laura, thank you very much for being back. Yeah, we touched on the fact that it's important, obviously, for parents to model that good conflict resolution skills at home from an early age, and then slowly you start teaching it. And respect came into the mix as well. That's definitely one thing I think that we need to be focusing on and teaching our children. But just to recap quickly, what are some of the good conflict resolution kind of tips that parents can pass on to their children?
So just remembering to teach them things like empathy, seeing things from different perspectives, the eye language, all that sort of stuff. And then what we were talking about is the respect stuff as well. So from a really early age, you know, as soon as kids around 18 months are asserting their independence, mine, that sort of stuff, well, then it starts going, well, I want to hold on to this tray and I'm not giving it to my friend. From then, we help to facilitate that kind of conflict.
Sharing.
It's going, hang on, let's count to 10, and then we're going to give it to John. So we help to facilitate them having to handle the disappointment of things not being the way that they want it to be, but to get through that stuff in a respectful way. So it starts early
there.
days.
And the way you describe it, it sounds easy, but I do know that sometimes parents go like, you know, just give it. Just give it, you know, it's tough. I get it. It's fine if you lose it at some point. We also spoke about parents losing it at some point.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We can't do it all the time, but as long as some of the time, and hopefully most of the time, because that's a realistic expectation,
breathe.
We can,
breathe.
and help facilitate the positive conflict.
I want to get into this now as well, being with my boy now being in grade 1, you know, and obviously there's new children and there's new experiences. What if you as a parent feel that there's a particular kid that you feel is not the best influence on your child, especially if they are young? Is it okay to say to your child to walk away from that friendship, or how do you go about that if it's really concerning you and you can see a change of behavior from your child?
So I think it's a great question and a really important one, because often our kids are going to have people in their lives, kids, friends, and we cannot just eliminate these people. So it really starts with our kids. It's helping them to understand their role in the friendship, rather than going, don't ever play with him, don't go near that child, he's bad news, stay away from him, speaking to the teacher, don't let them talk to them. We don't want to orchestrate that sort of stuff. We rather want to be going, well, what happens when he does that to you? Is it nice? Does it feel nice? What can you do? Helping him to learn to assert himself, stand up for himself. And also there's a two-way street. So you might have kids who come into our children's lives who've got difficulties managing their emotions, managing anger, that sort of thing. It's a really helpful thing to have in our children's lives. Look, he really struggles with his anger. That's something that he finds very hard. It's not okay for him to come and clout you whenever he feels angry, and what can you do when he does that? But it's also helpful to understand everybody comes with their own story. So it's not helpful as parents to just eliminate the difficult stuff, rather help our children grow and be able to manage what's around them.
As much as you want to get in there and help out, ultimately I think you need to guide your child to make that decision for himself at the end of the day. Laura, thank you very much. It's a big topic. Appreciate your time, your expertise, and your advice and your knowledge that you impart on us every parenting day, I can almost call it. Thank you very much. So have a beautiful day yourself. But there we have it, some good conflict resolution skills. You need to focus on that as a parent from a young age to make sure you really foster a beautiful young human being going forward.